portion of this career day, and we've got two guests from the entertainment world. Entertainment is huge, by the way, right? And entertainment is blowing up. Why is it blowing up? Because that's all you do is put your face in this little box and just live there all day long. And before you know it, it's time to go to sleep. So to think that it's not something that is exploding and that there's a career in it. I spoke to somebody. I said, "So what's your career?" And he says, "Well, I'm going to join the military." I go, "Why are you going to join the military?" And he goes, "That's the biggest thing he's excited about today, because he's going to go. There's a career. Yeah, one of the career events is going. There's a guy who enlists you."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I said, "What do you want to do that for?" And he says, "Well, because I don't know what I want to do." I go, he says, "Because it's hard to find a job. So you're going to go a place where you can't." It's not so important that you find a job. It's important that you do something on your own that and maybe that's fine. Maybe it works for him. But I said, that's something that I think works for somebody who's come from the ghetto and has no other way out and doesn't think about anything except to put himself up as a slave to a system, right? He's not just enlisting for a career. He's enlisting to put his body on the line to kill babies and mothers and babies. If that's what they ask him to do, I go, you can do better than that. I mean, if that's really you're driven to do it, then go do it. But I mean, go try to find a career, work your way out, try to find something that you think you should be doing, and go after it as hard as you can, right? Even if it doesn't work out, it's going to take you to the next place that maybe that won't work out either. But eventually, all those places that you go and you pursue, they add up to something that becomes you. And you needed every single one of the experiences. There's no failures in life. There's only a failure to experience something that you should put yourself into, right? The problem is if you don't put yourself into something, then you're not living, right? If you're not adding weight to your backpack every single day, leaning towards something that you're supposed to be, then you're not leaning towards anything. You think something's just going to lean into your life, and that's how things are going to be brought to you. They're not brought to you. You create them by putting more weight on your shoulders than you can carry, right? That's how you get out of trouble. That's how you get out of misery. This is a suffering planet, right? We all suffer. How do we know that? Because everybody you know is going to be dead, right?
This is thrilling.
Right?
Yeah.
So you might as well get away from that by giving yourself so much work to do, pursuing something that you think might be interesting, and really finding yourself always lean towards heaven, and you'll always have people following you that love you, right? Everything that you do touches everybody. There isn't anything that you do that doesn't touch somebody else. And if you touch somebody else, you're touching everybody, right? Because we're all connected. So the idea is, we got interesting people today that actually live the life of exactly what I'm talking about. They're leaning towards the thing that they really wanted, and they've become the thing that everything you want, you have to first see it, then you have to every day move towards it and really crystallize the thing you really want. This gentleman's a book writer. I see a book, right? He doesn't just see the book. I have to do everything in my power to manifest the book. So every day I got to push a pencil. And every day I push 1%. Before I know it, I see the book. I know what the cover is going to look like. I know what the pages are going to look like. And before you know it, you walk into a book. He's at a print shop printing it, right? I write a script. Next thing I know, I'm like, everything in my power to get this script done, get it through. I already see myself at a film festival. And not much further in the future, I'm on a plane at a film festival thinking about what I was thinking about before I wrote it, right? So you are the master of your own destinies by forcing yourself into a situation and getting yourself in order, setting yourself deadlines, put on a calendar by the end of this week, I'm going to have this done, right? And by the end of, you just see it, and when you see it, you manifest exactly what you want, and you crystallize it, and you do everything in your power not to fail, and the universe will conspire to make it happen. All right, I'm going to let these two gentlemen introduce themselves.
Gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy.
Ladies first.
Oh, thank you. So I'm Gina Rugolo-Judd, and I am a talent manager and a producer, and I agree with what he said. My background is I started in the business by being an intern. Probably my first job I was a production assistant on the Academy Awards. Worked my way up, saw that I was good with talent, sort of started thinking about what could I do with talent, and then I got a job just as I had an internship in a production company that led to them helping me get a job at a PR company. I didn't even know what publicity was, but I knew I was good with talent, so I thought if I could get closer to that. And at that time, a woman's name was Susan Geller. She represented all the Brat Pack, and that was at the height of all the John Hughes movies, if you know those, Pretty in Pink, and all of those kinds of movies. And I was like, I want to meet those actors. It was sort of my reference, but that's what I wanted to do. And then I worked there for quite a long time and did everything you could ever think of as far as campaigns for movies and television and actors. And then I segued, once I sort of saw that I had done everything you could do with that career, I wanted to learn the business side of the business, so I transitioned over to talent management, which is essentially sort of a boutique version, if you know what a talent agency is. Management is sort of unique because you can do a lot of different things. You can represent actors, but you can also produce and different things. So it was a perfect career for me because I didn't have to throw away my publicity career. I could just sort of take everything that I learned and then apply it and then learn the other side of the business. So that's what I do now, and I've had various different versions of that, and I have my own company, which is a boutique company. And so that's what I do, and I'll explain to you a little bit more detail. And then this is real talent, though. So now here we go.
No. Hi, I just want to welcome everybody here. And just to get a sense a little bit of the room, you're here because it said entertainment. I think you walked into the right room. You don't have to have a major interest in it. You just have to be curious about it. What you say you're interested in now, you can change again. How many are interested in the creative side of entertainment? How many are interested in the business side of entertainment? How many don't know? Okay. All right. I could spend 20 minutes on what the introduction was about. The reason so many people are attracted to entertainment now and why I mentor so many people and I work in it. I'm a writer. I'm a producer. I wrote a book. It wasn't really writing a book. It's based on my workshop that I teach at UCLA, which is a process book on how to write a pilot script, which is the first script of the template of a series. And the thing is, technology is what changed everything. And there is no better generation who understands that than you guys. And I think that is fantastic. I wish I was starting out now to see where technology will take us. I grew up, I'm from New York. I always wanted to be, as a kid, for some reason, I don't know why, I wanted to be an actor. All right, so I went to the High School of Performing Arts, which if anybody saw the movie Fame, that's what it was. I found out there that I was no good as an actor. So when I went to college, I decided I wanted to do film and television and radio and broadcasting, and that's what I got my degree in. And then because I was in New York and on the East Coast, I was too chicken to come out to LA to get into the business. So when you're on the East Coast, you go into advertising. So I went into advertising and did my song and dance for commercials and made tons of commercials, but always came out to LA to shoot commercials and stuff like that. And while out here, I was looking around for an advertising agency to hire me and move me and do all the stuff that I wouldn't have to do, and I'd have some sort of security, which in this business is something I shouldn't be looking for. And so I finally found one, and I moved out here, and I started writing spec scripts for comedies because I liked comedies, and I was driven to comedies and drawn to comedies, in particular the New York edgy kind of comedies, and found one that eventually hired me. So I transferred out of advertising into television, and that started my writing career. Now, the key to longevity, which is, I'm an example of it. I've survived for 25, 30 years in this business when so many of my friends are now like selling cars or something like that, is you keep adapting to the changing world. If you don't adapt to the changing world, you're never going to be able to keep up. You know, I say there were two major revolutions, the Industrial Revolution and the Technological Revolution. And if you didn't keep up with the Industrial Revolution, you'd still be in a horse and buggy. If you don't keep up with the technological revolution, you'll still be on the phone or writing letters or whatever it might be. It's a different world. I teach online at UCLA. I prefer to teach online. They want me to come to campus, but I like it. It's better for my schedule. But I like having students all over the world because once you're on the internet, it's global. And that's where everything is going. So now I grew up in the 4-network universe. Now there are 50 networks. So whether you are on the business side or the entertainment side, I say there is more opportunity now than there has ever been. The difference is you have to do it. You can't walk into somebody and say, oh, you know what? My friends think I'm so funny, I know I can write comedy. That's not going to work. That's just not going to work. And today, again, there are so many platforms that you can utilize, whether you're on the business side or the producing side or the creative side. There's web series. There's traditional features. There's 50 networks who are desperate for original material. Use your own voice. Be yourself. Mm-hmm. Don't try to be what somebody else is doing. They don't need that. As I tell people that I mentor, they don't need you for Law and Order. They need you for Transparent, which, if you know what that is, it's a very personal series. It wasn't even on their radar. That's what they need today. That's what they want. They want your passion. And I can honestly say that everybody in this room is unique and has their own voice. And that's what you want to portray. You don't want to run from that. I heard of a great, very famous screenwriter named Robert Towne, who said he thinks the trouble with people in Hollywood today is they're creating something that they think can sell, or they're writing something that they think is good for an actor, or they're writing something that they think, will gain attention from a producer. He said it's much simpler than that. He said, write what you want to see. If you write what you want to see, that is your best chance of success. Mm-hmm. And not necessarily that thing will sell, but it's the question of that becomes a showcase for who you are, what your thoughts are, what your talent is, what your perspective is, and that could easily get you hired on a staff somewhere or hired in a company somewhere because they like your individuality. So I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to figure out what it is you'd like to try and just do it. Mm-hmm. And there's a saying that I pass along to people is, you don't have to start to be good, but you have to be good. You don't have to be good to start, but you have to start to be good. And I just recommend you do that because nobody starts out being perfect. Nobody starts out being where they want to be. Nobody starts out being as good as they want to be. But you have to go through that. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Steven Spielberg. I don't care who you are. You have to go through that learning curve. All right? And that's what it's all about. So just do it. And whatever your interests are, I'd be happy to, consult with you or talk to you about it or see if there's some suggestions I can make to you. Because with the internet, you can do anything, anywhere. And the alternative to that is, I'm now building this, which he didn't talk about, getting a job. Truthfully, I would not count on the entertainment business for paying your rent. I'm building a subscription course called How to Be a Scriptwriter and Put a Roof Over Your Head. All right? Because with technology, and you're too young to deal with it, but I'm just passing it along to you, there are ways that you can make a stream of residual income with your own home-based business or phone-based business or anything like that because it's on the internet. And you just do that part-time, and that will earn you an income that you then can say, well, now I can do my passion. So there are ways, there are answers that exist today because of technology. All right, you want to go on?
No, I think that everything he's saying is 100% right. I come from a place of what I see now with your generation is sort of, there's so much coming at you that I think I'd like to break it down in the most simplistic way. For me, I think learning how to network is a really important tool and act upon it. It's something that I feel as you're starting to look for jobs, that is something that I think a lot of kids don't pay attention to. Like as you meet people, make a mental file. Is that somebody that I can talk to later to be a mentor to me? Can I contact them? Can I write them a note? Can I write them a thank you note? Simple things, but it goes a long way. I would say for me personally, probably that was always something that probably helped me get furthest in my career, which is I file information as I meet people and I think about where can I slot them in later in my life, and I don't care what they do. Like just now upstairs, I met 2 FBI agents. Well, I see this woman who's this gorgeous FBI agent. Well, in my mind, I start thinking, my God, is there a show with her? could I produce something? Could I do a female FBI agent? Or can I call her for one of my actors that they could do research with her? Or my God, do I need an FBI agent for something? But I start to file that stuff away, and you don't know where that's going to come later in your life. It may, like I represent actors, they may say something, and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, I can call that person for you and you can talk to them. It's very important to, in my mind, do that, because you just don't know. You may shift your whole career, and allowing yourself to sort of then know other people allows you to think bigger too. So that's sort of, in starting for me, that's where I would start. Just, you're in a great position right now to like sort of be exposed to a lot of things. As you read magazine articles, I still like am religious about, it's as simple as the LA Times. I file articles all the time in my mind just so that I can go, wow, I didn't know about that. I'm going to try to learn like what he's talking about. He's going to send me a podcast or something. I want to hear about what people are doing. And same thing with, I'm fortunate because I have 2 kids, one that's a freshman here and then one that's a sophomore in school. But I'm so thankful that I've been exposed to them, because I feel like I would not be with the modern times. I listen to what they're talking about. I'm not great with social media. It's my weakness right now, but I am paying attention to who they're watching, who they're listening to, what music they like, and then it just helps me sort of stay with it. And all of a sudden I might be like, wow, my client's talking about this, and now I can draw a reference from something, and it keeps me current with them. So that's sort of a broad strokes of where I think right now, where you're in that position, sort of pay attention, write things down, just start thinking about in a broader scope, like how can all of this apply to something later with my career?
I just want to quickly add, and then I would like this gentleman to take the floor.
Sorry.
In terms of networking, I tell people, these are not businesses of geniuses. You've learned that in your first year out here. Yes, there were a few, but then they need 50,000 other people. So I say, if you want a career, it consists of 2 sides. Do the work and network. You can't do one without the other, because I look, and most things come not from cold calls or cold people or cold interactions, from somebody who you know, from somebody who you know, who knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody. All right? And that's where the networking comes in. And social media, I think, is critical, absolutely critical. You can interact and network with all these people virtually. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you want to interact with, I have no idea, Chuck Lorre, I don't care who, you can get to his people through the internet, okay? And just do that. Just form a little relationship. Just say, I'd love to start a conversation with you. I'm in high school, I'm graduating, or whatever it is. I'd love to find out more. They will be receptive to that, all right? And that will pay off for you down the road. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, no, that's your turn.
No, I'm sorry, I'm late. So I'm Mark Schulman. I work in a company called 3 Arts Entertainment. You play basketball with Ryan, don't you? Yeah. What's up? 3 Arts Entertainment, we're a talent management and production company. So we produce ton of shows on television right now. We currently have 43 shows on television that we executive produce, and shows that are in syndication. So it's everything from shows you guys have probably seen, like King of the Hill and Beavis and Butthead, to The Office and Parks and Rec and 30 Rock and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Silicon Valley and Chris Rock Show. Shows that have, for the last 20 years, been huge television shows that we executive produce, meaning we produce it with our clients who are either in front of the camera, like actors or comedians or something like that, or writers or directors or producers. So it's probably as prolific a production slate as anyone in town, including the big studios like Fox or Warner Brothers, and everything we do is with our clients. We're also talent managers first. So we sign clients who we believe can be, as we say, businesses within themselves. So people who want to do it all, who want to produce, who want to write, who want to act, who want to host, who want to go on the road or write books or do speaking appearances, those sorts of clients. My division and the people I work with are people like Chrissy Teigen or Mario Lopez or Howie Mandel or Deborah Messing or it goes on and on. We also represent Kevin Hart and Tina Fey and Amy Poehler and Maya Rudolph and, you know, huge brands who are doing everything in front of the camera, but also writers and directors who have created a lot of the shows that they star in. I've been there 21 years now, and I love it. I think, you know, if I were going to say, in looking at our business, the most important thing for you guys to think about, regardless of what side of the camera you're interested in, if it's representation or more creatively as a writer, producer, director, anything like that, it is an incredibly time-consuming business. It is not for people who want to show up and work from 9 to 5 every day and then go home. It is the people who are most proactive, who want to work harder than the next people, are willing to get in earlier and stay later. That's this business. And if you're going to be in it, you better be incredibly passionate about what you're doing. And that's what I say every day. Like, I'm so fortunate as a talent manager, I can pick and choose who I represent. So I don't have to work with someone if I don't want to work with them. If I think they're a pain in the butt, or if I don't believe that there's a big business there, I don't have to work on it. So I'm spending the day the way I want to spend my every day. And I think that that's one thing I always say to my son, and my oldest son, who just graduated from here last year, is now studying architecture at Arizona. My middle son, who Ben plays basketball with, here he's a sophomore, is whatever they do, and especially if it's in our business, you better be passionate about it, because you're going to spend more time at my office than you will at home with your wife or husband and kids, sadly, but that's the reality. So you better love what you're doing every single day.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to say, I think there's, as you get out in the workforce, I think as he was saying, you have to work so hard. And I don't think any experience is a bad experience. I mean, I think that I worked for an incredibly difficult person at one point, and what I took away from it is I always had to be ahead and have the answer. That was the best lesson I learned from it, because there was no way that if she asked me a question, I wasn't going to have it done. Well, we've now become friends over the years and so forth, and I really admire her, but at that point, you know, I feel like now, I have to be honest, I think the new generation sort of immediately jumped ship quicker than the others. Like, we had to kind of live in it because there were sort of lesser opportunities. So if I were to look at it, not to say work at a job that you don't love, but you also have to, as he was saying, it's a lot of work. Like, you have to be willing to just roll up your sleeves. I just interviewed maybe 20 assistants. It was really fascinating to me. And I looked at their resumes, and as I got closer and I met with them, they all worked at top companies, but then when I looked further into their resume, every one of them had the job 2 months, 2 months, 2 months, 2 months, 2 months. And I went, wow, please tell me why only 2 months? Well, it wasn't this enough, it wasn't that enough, it wasn't this enough, it wasn't that enough. And I went, you know, you don't have to take the job working for me, but my best advice is when you finally find something that seems really interesting to you, just as that company, stay there for a year. Just like learn. You're young enough. You're 20 years old, 21. Just be there and really learn everything for a year. Try to move yourself up a little bit. Again, don't be in a place that really you're miserable at. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if it's generally a company that you're going to learn from, know that it's not easy. You're going to have to step up a little bit and be there and learn.
I would just like to add to that my wife says, and I totally agree with it, if you enjoy what you're doing, it's not work.
Right.
So I would suggest to you that doesn't mean you have to enjoy everything you do at the job. There's always going to be some part of it you don't like. But I used to work with somebody who used to say he judges people who work for him by how well they do the task they don't like, rather than the ones they do like, because that's the barometer. And I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan. He's in town this week, and he says motivation is more important than ability. You have to be motivated and driven and passionate, and you will probably get there further than somebody who might have more ability than you, but doesn't have that motivation, doesn't have that drive, doesn't have that ambition, doesn't have that passion. So that's what you have to look into yourself and say, do I really want to do this?
Well, it's funny, the way our office is set up, we all have our offices, and then in the middle of the cubicles where all the assistants are. And when you often walk, I often will walk by all the manager's office and just check in and see if I can help them with anything. And one thing I always look at is with the assistants, what are they doing when I'm walking by their desks? Because half of them will be looking at Facebook or Instagram, and will be, or sports scores or whatever they are, and you immediately know with all those people, time is limited. They're never going to make it through. The people you can walk through who are reading articles, who are searching for stuff online, who are reading a script, who are looking at videos, those are the people who are going to make it through. And I do believe that is, it sounds so simple, but if you just want it a little bit more than everybody else, you're going to be that much further ahead. It's the people who are just complacent or figuring, I'm just going to do enough. People are just going to get a C because, you know what, it's average, I'll pass, I'll do fine, I'll get into a college, I'll do okay, I may make the team, I don't know if I'll play, but I'll be on the team. Those are the people who ultimately kind of burn out in our business, because you just find it's just, you're expendable.
Well, the key is your competition is that. So you're up against the people who are driven, who are spending 12, 15 hours a day at it, or whatever it might be, because they are that motivated and that driven. And that's your competition.
I just heard about a friend of mine's daughter just got a job, and right away she's moving up, and it's at a network. And her, I was asking about her, and she's kind of a star girl in that way. And the reason I say that was she got a job immediately. Sort of the head of the department noticed her because she was so interested, and then sort of asked if she could become this person's assistant. But she said, I see that maybe you want to read some of the scripts that we have. And she said, I've already read them. And then they had a late night meeting. I think it went to 8 o'clock at night, and she was only supposed to work till 7. And the boss came out, and the assistant was still there. And essentially, the boss said, why are you still here? And she said, well, if my boss is still here, then I need to be here. And she said, don't ever do that again, actually, to the assistant. But that showed that this person was really interested and respectful. So those are minor little things, but they go a long way. Like when I heard that, I thought, wow, this girl's going to be the person that, hopefully I can call in a couple of years, but that's what it takes.
When we started, from my experience, when I first broke into the business, there weren't a lot of ways in as a creator or as a representative. To do what I do, it was letter writing, it was making calls, and it was just being, all over that as much as you can. As a writer or creator, if you want to be a writer or a producer or an actor, there weren't a lot of ways in. Now, I think a huge advantage all you guys have, if you're interested, it's actually pretty easy if you're willing to work hard enough to create content, to go say, I'm going to start a YouTube page, and it's going to be me and a few buddies, we're going to do funny little videos on a daily basis, and you're a better shooter than you are a writer, than you are an actor, and you figure, well, the three of us together, we can do this very easily and put a YouTube video up, or we can start a blog, or we can start a column, we can do, an Instagram post of all these things that are worth discussion. It's so easy to do, to create content, and the accessibility we all have, because I can tell you, look, I'm a partner at a big management company, and I'm so accessible. It's so easy for creators or actors or writers to get to me by sending an email and saying, here's a link of something I just produced, or a play I just did, or a clip of a commercial I just did. It's so easy to get to people now. And through social media, it's the same thing. There's a difference between posting selfies all day long and then putting stuff in there where you can actually DM someone and say, I'd love you to take a look at this, or here's a flyer to something I'm going to perform in. People will see it now. And so if for people willing to actually push themselves, we're very accessible.
Not only that, and let me add this, and if anybody would like them, I can send them to them. I do a lot of seminars for the WGA on all the various platforms because I love to empower people. Rather, I don't want people to say, I haven't heard from my agent. I said, you know what? I'm out of here. You go out and create something. You go out and do something. So I did a seminar on creating a web series, which is really a very powerful thing and easy to do, particularly in this town where you can throw a stick and hit 10 people who will help you. The thing is, you're not doing it to go viral, and you're not doing it to make money. You're doing it so that you have something to show. And often that happens, and I can send you the seminar I did on creating a web series. People will get cast on a show, or people will be hired on a show or as a staff or anything like that based on what they did in their web series. The other platform that's come along that I've really immersed myself in and encourage other people to do, which is something called scripted audio. Now, when I heard that, I had no idea what they were talking about until they said, well, in your day and age, it was called radio. And I go like, oh, I got that now. So I did a seminar on that for the Writers Guild on creating scripted audio, which is a huge platform. There are shows that are being picked up for television. There are shows that are being picked up for movies, whether they be documentary or fiction, coming from this audio platform. There's a show on now called The Home Company with Julia Roberts on Showtime or Amazon. I don't know what it's on. But that was a scripted that was a radio show. There are others that are being picked up for feature development. I mean, there is so much that you now are empowered to do, not on your own. This is a team sport, all right? But you can do it, and that's the kind of thing that he's talking about.
We just signed, it's so funny, it's a perfect example. I'm really not in the kids business at all. Like, I really don't represent like young kids, and we have a couple managers who do. But recently, another client of ours, Deborah Messing, and I had a meeting, and Deborah and I were going through some of her social media feed and saw this post on these two little girls. This was about 6 or 8 months ago. And I don't know if any of you have seen it, but they go by the Scripture Time girls. Their name is Danny and Dana Lockett. There's 7 and 8-year-old girls who lived in Texas who just did this thing where they did funny little passages, but inspirational little videos on Instagram. She showed me, again, this is 6 or 8 months ago. They probably had 100,000 followers at the time. And they were so distinct and so special that the second you saw these, you're like, these girls are just unbelievable. They're just so special and different and doing something nobody else is doing. Flew them out to California, met them, signed them, and they, about 2 weeks ago, just signed on to do a huge new NBC show that Chris Rock is producing. So, not that it always happens like that, clearly, but it just shows, like, if you put content out there, if you just do, as opposed to just saying, hey, we're adorable little girls, we want to get an agent, and then we want to do this, and, you know, you got cute little headshots, like, that's not enough. You can do more now. And they're living proof of it.
And when you get sophisticated enough, and he's accessible. He said he's accessible. You don't have to wait for Deborah Messing to bring it to his attention.
Right.
You could go to IMDb Pro or Variety Insight or whatever the platforms are that you have the staff of people for every company in town, and you could email him and say, you know, I have a web series. I'm 8 years old. Would you like to take a look at it? Yeah. He's going to say yes. He's absolutely going to say yes, and you've gone one-to-one. You know, it's like Amazon. It goes straight from you to the consumer. You know, that's the world we live in. So, absolutely, take advantage of all of it.
But it's also, when you have, because you do have instant access also, it's how you do it and what you can do to catch their attention, or really doing a little pre-homework as well, so that you really, if you have that moment, you know, I just had someone who was really smart, a kid who contacted me who, quite frankly, looked through a directory of, he went to a school, he saw parents in there that he thought would be right for what he was interested in. He wrote me at a very specific point of view, and it really caught my attention. I thought, wow, he put some time into it, he thought about it. We met, he's followed up with me, you know, he's a writer, but he really, I was impressed with what he said, what he was thinking about. He was very on point, even knowing that necessarily in my day I don't deal day to day with writers, but he knew what I had done. He complimented me on something I had worked on. You know, he understood what to do. So that's important too. So when you have that access, it's also important what you do with it on some level as well.
Have you you guys heard of the show It's Always Sunny?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you know the story behind it, but it's pretty incredible, and this is again living proof of it. A partner of mine one day came in the office and said, "Hey, I just signed these 3 young guys. They're out of Juilliard, really talented actors. They shot a little pilot. They spent $100 on it. I mean, like, not exaggerating. They came in and he showed it to a few of us. We all looked at it and like, these guys, this is really, really good. They shot it totally on their own. It looked like there was a shaky handhold, video, and that's the way they shot this. But it was just well written and well acted and produced well. That was the actual pilot. That what they shot. We brought to FX. We brought to Fox, and both places offered to buy the show. And we sold it to FX 17 seasons later. That's how it started. I'd love to tell you, it was like we had this great idea of what we did, we paired this writer with this. No, they were just smart enough to say, we're just going to put it out there. We're going to do the show we want to do. And nowadays, you can actually do it.
That's right. I did a web series, I'm just quickly, after the writer's strike of 10 years ago, I think it was, 9 years ago, they were encouraging new media and do websites. So I did one, but I know out of production and out of advertising, I knew the first thing I wanted to do was make it easy and cheap and inexpensive. And so I did one called Psychobabble, which was about group therapy, shot it in my apartment using 4 flip cameras, which is now out of business, but those were the instant cameras at the time, edited it on my MacBook Pro, did 6 episodes of it, and it's in development as a half hour, and these were only 5 or 6 minute episodes. And the moral of the story is, when people ask me, well, how much did it cost you to do that? I said, well, quite frankly, my friends were the actors. I shot it in my living room. I said, it cost me pizza for 10. So my production company is now called Pizza for 10 Productions.
That's funny.
Do you guys have any questions? Because I know we have limited time. I just wanted to see if there's anything that any of you have for a question.
When it comes to like managing an actor or managing in general, I guess, like, what does it mean to get it from, okay, here's your like little clip that you sent me, or your little pilot episode, what does it mean to then get that to then be like a show? How do you like manage that into like a show with like 17 seasons?
I mean, it's a long process, but it starts with that. What that is sort of like your jumping off point. That's your kernel, right? If you've got something there, if we're talking about the development of an idea, right? If you develop something that is interesting enough, you have this idea and it's you and, all 4 of you were siblings going to high school together, and you just decided to sort of do a little, diary on it, and it's 5 minutes of that, then what we would then do is say, okay, none of you have yet produced a television show. So we figure out, is there a writer we want to have you meet with? Are there certain directors we want to have you meet with that can bring experience to that? And how, we say package it, but make it a bigger idea. Something that when we go out to buyers will have comfort that they've done it before, and they keep you involved in that process. But it's a long process, but the part that you control is having an idea that feels special to you, that feels something a story you want to tell.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, I think finding the company that sort of shares your vision is really important. Like, they got so excited, I got so excited for them. Like, they met these 2 kids, and they're like, oh my God, we know what to do. Like, they saw it. I could have met with them and been like, don't get it, So you have to figure out, as you meet with people, if you can get them as excited as you are and trust that they have those relationships to build it, very important. Because, again, as he was saying a little bit, like, everything I've ever sold as a producer has been the thing I love the most. Like, if I start to go down to this is what the networks are looking for, nobody really knows, right? So, of course, you should be smart and kind of go in the direction that maybe there's a hole and they want it, but if you're so passionate, the stuff I'm so excited about, oh my God, like, I don't even care if anybody says no. I kind of can't even hear them because I get so excited about whatever that is. That's infectious. So it's the same thing. If you meet with a manager and you go, they got it, what's better than walking in a room and just having your team love it as much as you do? Very important.
Not being at their end of the business, I'm going to say that these are 2 at the top of the food chain. And the one thing I say is, get a manager before you get an agent. I know so many people who say, oh, I can't do anything, I don't have an agent. I say, try to get a manager first, because the manager will really nurture you if they like you, and they know the agents to put you with. So I say, if that's your route, go with the manager. These days, though, a lot of people can't get either. I say that should not stop you. Not at all. Go out and do your stuff, and don't worry about rejection. If you're worried about rejection, get out of the business now. That's part of every day. You're looking for people who agree with you. You're looking for people who appreciate you. You're looking for people who will help you. And you want to go with the one who's the most enthusiastic about you. They don't have to be with CAA.
Other questions?
I say too, there's been a shift. It's not who you know, it's who knows you.
That's right.
And all you need is an iPhone,
That's right.
right? I've got 200 students in this program, and there's a thing called the Pareto principle and Price's law. Pareto was a mathematician, an Italian, and he discovered that he liked growing agricultural things, and he'd do math on it. He discovered that 20% of his crops were putting out 80% of the weight. He said, I wonder if that works in the real world too. And he looked at the country of Italy, and he wanted to discover who owns it. Turns out that 20% owned 80% of the country. There's the same kind of principle went into Price's law. They studied it. It was a mathematical kind of research where they discovered the square root of any group does 80% of all the work. So in a classroom of about 30 students, about 5.5 students do all the work. The rest are just there for the ride, right? So you have to become the 5% that are actually putting out 80% of the work. Because 80% of you will just be spectators thinking it'll just come to you, right? You don't want to be that, and the numbers go crazy. What's the square root of 100, right? Square root of 100, I think, is something like 9. The square root of 500, I think the square root of 1,000 is like 17. It's a low number. And so you imagine a major company where 17% leave if things start going shaky. That business is toast. The best, you have to ferret out who those best people are. The best people in Kbev out of the 200 students, those guys are making $500 a month just on Google, on their YouTube channel, right? And they're 14, 15, 16 years old.
I was talking about it a little bit.
I've signed contracts in here with Fremantle and with Red Arrow in Germany. They were looking for they're starting a channel on YouTube, a live action animation channel. And who did they pick? It was an 11th grader from our class. Yeah, he's still doing the series. And so the idea of who can do stuff, it's just, it all starts with just an iPhone. And it doesn't have to be great stuff, you just do it. And the hardest one is the first one. And everyone gets easier and easier. Because now with your phone, you have $1 million studio. There's no excuse if you have any ambition at all. If you want to be something, you ask people, what do you want to do? Well, I want to be somebody. I want to be remembered. Everybody wants to be remembered because we're all going to die, right? What are you going to leave behind is like whatever you, every day is something because you have your own unique life, right? You're here in Beverly Hills right now. You can't be in a better place. The opportunity to be inside something while you're in it and to leave a mark is like, get it while it's hot, baby. Because once you leave this place, if I told you how many people call me and say, hey, can I come in and shoot this show? Oh, you could have shot that show for 4 years while you're in here. I'm not interested in you anymore. We could talk about a deal, but it won't be here.
Yeah, that's true.
There are places you can go. You know, I mean, the bottom line is you really, to piggyback on that, out of 100 people you approach with whatever it is you do, 90% are not going to want to talk to you. 90% are going to say goodbye to you. 90% are say, I'm not interested. You're looking for that 10%. And that's the only thing you should be driven for.
One of my clients, who clearly will remain nameless when you hear the story, he was talking about going on auditions in the beginning of his career, And he said, look, he goes, I've been on about 100 auditions, and I've gotten about 5 or 8 jobs from it. He goes, but it's not dissimilar than dating. If I ask 10 girls out, one girl says yes, it was a success. So he goes, that's all right, as long as I'm willing to face the rejection. And I think it's the same way in a lot of ways.
Totally.
In what we do, you just have to have confidence enough in what you're doing, and in going out there and be willing to face rejection. And the other thing I think is so important, because we talked about sort of the human side of our business. So much of what we do is knowing how to deal with people and being able to talk to people. I'm often more drawn to students who have gone, not that Yale and Harvard aren't brilliant schools, but for our business, I'm normally more drawn to kids who have gone to a Michigan or a UT or a UCLA, well not UCLA, USC, or a school like that, because you learn to deal with people in a more social situation. How do you deal with conflict? How do you deal with people who don't look like you? There's a social part of that, a human part of that. When you have a client call or a producer call who's flipping out, how do you deal with that situation? How do you keep everything calm, keep everything chill, and still be in control of a situation? Often, if you don't get your head out of a phone or a book, many times you don't know how to look up and talk and look at someone in the eye and shake their hands and have a normal conversation with people. So much is just doing it and talking to people and being social, communicating with other people, doing internships, which I've always said with my kids is so crucial. I did it every single year of high school, every year of college, and it was so important. And ultimately, the reason I got my job that I'm at was by doing those internships and people I met through that. It's so easy to do that. So many companies will offer and give you credits, especially in college. I'm not exactly sure in high school it works.
High school.
Yeah, but in college for sure, they just want some help for a few months. So finding that company in a perfect world and saying, if you're interested in production, I don't know, Warner Brothers would be amazing. They're offering internships every summer, and they'll give you credits for college. So you're working towards your degree, but you're actively doing something to be around. It's like artists breed artists, and you want to be a great basketball player. You don't sit in your backyard all the time. You got to get in games. You got to play with people who are better than you. When you're doing the same thing in this space, you got to be in people you can learn from and talk to and ask questions.
And you don't have to start out great. A manager once said to me, which was the most freeing thing anybody ever said to me, he said, and this was a fan of mine, he said, Bill, you're going to be a better writer a year from now than you are today, and that's the way it should always be.
Yeah.
And I think that if you can walk in with that attitude, whether you be an intern or whether you whatever it is, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what's going on, don't try to be perfect. Perfection is paralyzing. So just be who you are, knowing I'm going to get better at this.
Yeah, and then I think two things. For me personally, if now I learn to ask of friends, people that I've met in the business, questions, ask for advice. I think I sort of, for the first maybe years, I shut it down. I was embarrassed to say I didn't know something. I'm calling people all the time now. Boy, you're doing this more than me. Can I talk to you? Can I ask you what is going on? I have a question. I need to ask him after this. I'm going to be like, I need to learn this, because you can't do all things. You're really good at what you do, and then you have to learn from others. And the second thing I was going to say, you have a resource right here, Cindy Dubin's office. She's always putting out, I can see, like, on the, every week she's posting, like, offices that are looking for interns. Go to her and go look and see who the famous alumni of Beverly High are that did something that you're interested in. Those are the people. You've got your audience right there. Hi, I'm a current student of Beverly Hills High School. I saw that you went here. I admire what you've done. Can I come talk to you? You can get that list, and so I would go to Cindy and sort of say, here's my interest. Maybe you could point me in the right direction of an alumni or a current internship of a company's reached out to you and been open, because it's right there. You've got less resistance. That's the first place I think you could start if you're not sure, like, well, how do I do that? That's a good place. She's a good resource, that department.
Asking questions is so crucial. Like, there's nothing worse than not asking and screwing it up and making it worse. Well, the other thing I was going to say, that, and sort of a lesson learned, my very first job right out of USC was working for a guy, was with Brandon Tartikoff.
Yeah.
And Brandon was the chairman of NBC, youngest network president. But it was when he was president, he did Friends and Cosby and Family Ties and Cheers and Seinfeld. All those were while Brandon was the president of NBC. I had an incredible, it's a long story, but long story short, it was my first job right out of USC, was working with Brandon. I went in for my first meeting, and I was just so sort of overwhelmed with the situation. I showed up, I was 22 years old at the time. I was hazing pledges a month earlier, and then a month later I'm working with Brandon. And so I go into my first meeting with nothing, like I'm sitting here right now. And I walk into the meeting, we sat through a whole meeting with Brandon and an agent and his comedian client, and they pitched a show to us that took about an hour. Meeting ends, Brandon started asking me questions about the pitch. I answered probably 25% of them in detail and just didn't have all the other answers. I didn't remember character names, I didn't remember storylines, certain things about the meeting. And Brandon said to me, number one, you always bring a pad and pencil or something to take a note in every meeting, like, of course, like I don't have right now, into every meeting. But the most important lesson he taught me, because I was like at that point, like, oh crap, I'm gonna get fired at 2 days into my job. And as he said to me is, I will never get mad at you for screwing something up. I will get mad at you for screwing it up twice. And I think in every part of this business, we're all gonna screw up. We're all gonna make mistakes. I still do often I make mistakes. But what makes it worse is when you don't learn from them. And I think that you're all gonna mess up in whatever you do. But why did you mess up? And knowing not to mess it up next time is crucial.
I don't know how much time. Any other question? I don't know how much time we have.
I don't either.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Okay.
No other questions?
Come on.
All
Who
right.
wants to be out of curiosity, who wants to be in front of the camera, like an actor, or you want to act? And are you studying here as well?
I act. Like, I've been acting since I was 7.
Oh, cool.
Now I have to compliment her because you're gonna be mad at me now, but I've watched her because I represent actors and I know her, and she's doing what it takes. She has gone and worked as an understudy on a play that I went to see, and I saw her there. That's a big commitment for a student at night, but she was there and she learned a lot. She's taking acting class. She's asked questions. You know, she's been in the school plays. She's volunteered. I have watched her, and that she's doing what it takes because she's game for it. So every experience, I'm sure you've learned from, right? And she was literally had laryngitis in a school musical and went on. I give her a lot of credit. And everyone applauded her. More people noticed her for the guts that took to do that than whether she was great singing it or not, quite frankly. So that's a compliment to her and her career. I've watched that.
Yeah.
So
that is the hard, I'll tell you, actors, comedians, writers, but especially in front of the camera, I have so much respect for, because you bust your butt and you prepare for an audition, you spend hours and days in preparing, and you go in for an audition and you have a minute, to convince a room, and those are the rooms you actually might be right for. So many times you walk in 75% of the time and they go, oh, she's too tall, she's too short, she's too pretty, she's not pretty enough, she's this, that. Like, so many times the decision's made before you open your mouth. So it's so, the commitment an actor, a comic, or someone like that has to have, because you are facing rejection every single day. So you better believe in yourself, and it challenges you in a big, big way. I had one client, my very first client I signed 21 years ago was Craig Robinson. If you guys know Craig, and he was on The Office, and This Is the End, and a million other things. My first client was Craig. It was a week into my job. I signed him at the Bay Area Comedy Festival up north, And I said to Craig after the show, he was a school teacher in Chicago at the time, funny enough. And I said, you know, I started at 3 Arts, kind of figuring out what the hell I'm doing over there. I know how to produce, I know how to put shows together, but as far as a manager, I'm figuring it out. But I would love nothing more than you be my first client, and you know, we grow together. And Craig was my very first client. It took about 5-6 years that Craig got really his first job, and being able for him and me to keep pushing every single day. He was close so often and didn't get it. And I will never forget the day, because he had a couple busted pilots, shows that didn't go, and he starts to question, should I go back? Should I teach again? What am I doing? Should I do more stand-up? Should I go on the road more? And it was just at that point, I will never forget. And he went out. Did anyone see the movie Knocked Up? Nobody saw Knocked Up here? Oh my gosh, you saw it.
Yeah.
That's such a great movie. You gotta, when your parents say okay, you gotta watch that movie. So he was the bouncer in Knocked Up. Do you remember the bouncer where he starts crying? The big black guy, and he comes, and the lady comes in, and he starts crying. So Craig got this role that on the page was 2 lines. It was just a nothing little role about letting someone into a club. He made this scene so memorable, and I remember when I saw that scene, and I said to Craig, your career will never be the same after this. And that's what turned his entire career. You know, it's that moment.
And I've had like a couple clients for that length of time too. And Laura San Giacomo was a client, and she started in Sex, Lies, and Videotape, which really sort of created independent film. But then she shifted and ended up on a really important sitcom called Just Shoot Me that I worked with her on. But she just did another film back at Sundance 30 years later, exactly 30 years later from where she started. But what I like about her the most is, as an actress, what she always asks as an actress, as opposed to, am I getting the job? The question she'll call, and I hope she doesn't mind that I'm sort of discussing her, but I don't think so, because I always comment, is she wants to know when she goes in the room, did I affect someone? Did we have a moment together? What was the response to that moment? As opposed to, did I get the job? She knows it's a long business. You hope someone gets a job, they don't. But that is more important, I think, in any, if you can sort of remember that in anything you do. Did we have a moment? Did I affect someone? Did they leave thinking about what we talked about? That's really, I think, important. And I think Craig made something of those 2 lines or whatever. He left that director with, I want to work with that guy again, because he made something out of 2 lines, you know?
And I would like to compliment the actress back there, I don't remember your name, because not only did you do the job, you expanded your network, and that's the key. All the people you worked with, all the people you intersected with, you now know. And as I tell people about networking, it's not about networking with me, it's not a one-on-one thing. It's about me and my 2,000 followers. Do I have somebody who I know, who might know somebody who might be able to help you? That's networking, and congratulations.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys.
3 Arts, eh?
Been a long run.
I'm Gina. I'm Will Judd's mom.
Oh my gosh, how are you?